Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, as you guys can see, I've got some paint and some thinner in front of me here that I want to share with you today. This is actually a relatively new line of colors. This is made by AK, and it's their Real Color line. Now, AK was kind enough to reach out to me and offer up some samples so that we can kind of put it through its paces here. So we've got 6 different colors. 2 of them are NATO black and a white color, so they've obviously watched my videos, so they know I like to use those a lot. Plus we also have some olive drab, some buff, and a dark gray and orange color right here, plus they're thinner. So what I thought I would do today is we're just going to take some plastic pieces and kind of just paint them all up, see how they work. We'll try to do some messing around with it and see how it takes to thin. Just everything you would normally do just starting off with a new paint. Now, I've heard a lot of good things about them, but I haven't read too deep into it because I want to really experience for the first time myself and really just try it all the different ways, because sometimes you read certain things and they're not always accurate. But this way we're just going to play with it and have some fun and see how it works out. So let's get started on it. Okay, so you can see we have the colors in front of us here, and to start off, they are a 1/3 fluid ounce or 10 milliliter glass bottle, and in fact it's the exact same size as Tamiya's small bottles. They're 10 milliliters as well. And we also have a high compatibility thinner that is out, that is designed for the Real Colors line. Now it also said it'll work on most other acrylic paints as well, so we might, if we have a chance, try some of it out on some other paints as well. Now obviously one of the biggest things on any type of paint is getting it to airbrush properly, is thinning it down. So what I thought I would do is, looking at the paint, it looks similar in consistency to some of the others I've seen on the market. So we're just going to jump in and try it out and experiment, because there's no instructions anywhere that I found. So we're just going to basically fill, just like we would do a Tamiya bottle, right almost up to the top there. We're going to shake it up really good and spill a little bit all over the side here. But we'll get all that mixed up and let's go put it through the airbrush. Okay, we're going to do a little paint test to see how it flows using it with the thinner. This is just a regular sheet of styrene here that we have, and we're going to be using our Iwata Eclipse HPCS brush, and we'll fill up the bottle and see how it works. Okay, you can see that we've shot the dark gray color right onto the piece of plastic. We let it dry for, I'm not kidding, like a grand total of like 5 seconds, and it is completely dry to the touch. Ultra smooth. I'm very impressed with it. So clearly the thinning ratio is very similar to Tamiya, in the sense that you can just fill the bottle and that entire bottle looks to be ready to airbrush. Okay, for the next tests, we're going to try laying down some of the gray paint over some Tamiya red oxide primer. So it's a lacquer-based primer. We want to see how it interacts with that and if it lays down as smoothly. Okay, once again, we've let it dry literally for less than a minute here, and as you can see, it is dried dead flat and very smooth. So it adheres pretty well to that. Okay, I also performed another test on it here. I took the original one. This was not the one in primer. The primer side was this over here. And I took it outside and just sprayed it with some Tester's lacquer clear coat, the dull coat, 1260, the one I use all the time on different models. And as you can see, it went on. It had no interaction with the paint. Worked really good on it there, and actually makes it really durable. I mean, using my fingernail on it, that obviously you're gonna put light marks off, but it's not gonna scratch it completely off. So, but actually, before we go on to the next thing, one other thing I should point out is the paint is, and this is not a negative, this is just an observation. The paint was a little bit harder to clean out of the airbrush. Normally with like Tamiya paint and like Mission models, you can just take it under the water, little soap and water, and it'll take off the majority of it while it was mostly wet. But I noticed I had to either go in and use a little bit of the, to me, as airbrush cleaner, which this stuff is really powerful. I have not found anything that this doesn't take out of an airbrush. And then also for the second time I painted with it, I had to use a little bit of the Real Color thinner to take it out. And like I said, it's not a negative at all. It just be aware that it won't come out as easy with soap and water as it would some other paints. So what the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to do like a little test. I've taken this old model kit that I have. It's a to me a Steyr, and it was already painted and weathered, but what we did is we just sprayed the entire thing with primer just to neutralize any paint or anything that we had underneath there. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a black and white technique coat on this and then put some other paints on top of it just as a test to see how it all works together. Now I don't have any German colors unfortunately to do this, so you'll have to forgive me, but we're going to have to paint it with an olive drab with the black and white underneath it there. So it's just a test, guys. It's just we'll just play around a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put a black and white coat on this now, and then we'll go ahead and put the olive drab on top. Okay, using the same settings and the same airbrush, we're going to spray the entire model with NATO Black. As you watch me paint, I'm very impressed with how quickly the paint dries completely dead flat. In fact, it's drying so quickly, I don't think it's even possible to get any drips or runs out of this particular paint. It goes on very, very smooth and has a pretty good covering as well. Now we're going to put on our off-white. This is the color that they gave me on it, and right off the top you'll notice that it doesn't have a lot of the little speckle overspray that you have with some whites. Now you will notice as I start to go forward right here, there is paint going to start to dry in the tip of the airbrush, so I'll notice it right here, and from then on start the flow of air off of the model, and that'll prevent any of those little splatter marks. So if you're going to move it to another panel or anything like that, it'll really do nicely to prevent any of the overspray, but does a very, very nice job of the with the white color. And finally, now we're going to start spraying our olive drab. Now, obviously, we don't want to go too heavy with it because we don't want to cover up everything we've done with the black and white coat underneath. We want to see those panels pop through and really show off some highlighting effects to this. Well, there we go. Here is what the finished product looks like after we've put the black and white coat on, as well as a fairly mild coat of the olive drab. Now, the olive drab, as you can clearly see, is more of a faded olive drab, but I really do like the way the color turned out on that. It's a nice faded version of World War II olive drab. That we're going to try a little thing on here too, is since we're trying out the paint in different ways, we're going to try a little dry brushing, and I'm taking a little bit of the buff color, and we're just going to highlight some of the wheels just a little bit here, just around the edge, and just see how it dry brushes. And even though it does dry fairly quickly, you still can dry brush with it as well. Whoops. So yep, so it passes the dry brushing test as well. Actually holds up pretty well. We'll knock down some of those. Now granted, this would not normally be the regular color that we'd use for dry brushing, maybe on some other areas, but this is the paint that I have in hand, so we're just, like I said, experimenting with the different colors that we do actually have. But as you can see, it makes the tire pop out quite a bit. Okay, another important test, of course, is masking. And what we've done here is we have sprayed just NATO black over bare polystyrene plastic. Nothing has been coated on it, anything on that. And we've let it dry now for about a half an hour. So we're using some really low tack masking tape. This is the Tamiya one. And we'll put that on for a few minutes. And we're also going to use a little bit tackier stuff. This is just regular blue painter's mask. And we're going to put some of that on there because this is usually a little bit more aggressive with the plastic. So we're going to let this sit on there just for a few minutes as if I painted this, I've masked it, and I want to go over and do the second color on it. So we'll give it like about 5 minutes and come back and pull off the tape and see how it works. Okay, we're back. So well, as you can see, nothing came off on the tape after 5 minutes. And same thing on this one right here. It is completely clean. So now normally when I would mask, I would probably, clear coat it or anything. I just got some dust on it there. But yeah, actually it held up really well with masking. What I'll do too is we will leave this on for a little bit longer. Better test maybe for like a half an hour. So we'll put both of these back on, come back in a half an hour and show you what happens. Okay, we let it sit up for about a half an hour now. Plus I also went and painted on the masking tape as well. So as you can see, we got a nice clean removal of even the tough tape, and same thing with the Tamiya masking tape. So actually holds up very, very well to masking tape. Okay, the last thing we're going to do now is we're just going to take some paint right out of the bottle on a paintbrush and see how well we can paint with a paintbrush with this. And granted, I am putting it on a little thick, but I'm impressed that it's not pulling up. Because as dry as it is, or as fast as it dries, I should say, I would have expected it to actually pull up the, when it starts to dry right here, as you go over it multiple times, it sometimes will pull up the other paint. But this is adhering pretty well, even with a paintbrush. Now, it has been thinned. It's the actual one, the exact way I thinned it, just for airbrushing as well. So put a couple of little coats on here because I know some of you guys do use paintbrushes, and especially on small parts too. I use that all the time too. If I was going to paint wheels or something, or go in there and detail something. So let's let that dry for a little bit and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, as you can see, there are some brush strokes inside of it there, but that's a pretty large area, and I didn't really adjust too much with the thinner. I kind of did these little dots over here to kind of show you how a small area, which is what I would be painting if I was going to do any hand brushing. So it turns out pretty good. I might just even throw a coat of dull coat over this just to see how it flattens the entire thing out. Well, there you go, guys. There's our review of AK's Realcolors, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the quality that they are. They airbrushed beautifully, came out very, very flat and very smooth. They held up really well to masking tape of all different types. They also did well with dry brushing. The hand brushing, we did have a few brush strokes on it, as you would expect, but I bet if you messed around with it a little bit more, you could really get them to be a lot smoother than what I did. I don't hand brush at all, so if I do, it's going to be a small little area, and that turned out really fine for what it was. So there's 114 colors available from them, and they're acrylic lacquers, and in, of course, like I was telling you earlier, in 10 milliliter bottles, plus they've got the big bottles of thinner. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming.